Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Montgomery County Council. Today, we're holding a special meeting for the introduction, public hearing, and action on a resolution to adopt a Board of Health regulation to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in Montgomery County. On Tuesday afternoon, with no advance notice or communication with the state's county leaders or local health officials, Governor Hogan announced that the state would be lifting COVID restrictions beginning today at 5 p.m. And this announcement left business owners scrambling to make plans for wider reopening with only 3 days' notice. It put many unvaccinated workers at risk with less safety guidelines in place, and it left those of us in local government in a challenging position to have to balance public health and economic health. The governor's order is a complete divergence, unfortunately, from the guidance of our local health officials, but also our country's top public health officials. Just last Tuesday morning, hours before the governor's announcement, Dr. Fauci shared a message with the council saying, quote, "Now is the time to keep our foot on the accelerator with regard to adherence to public health measures such as masking, physical distancing, and other measures that we know work to reduce the spread of the COVID virus, while we're ramping up efforts to vaccinate as many people as we can as quickly as possible." And Dr. Fauci is not the only top medical official who feels that way. A few days earlier, the director of the CDC, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, said, "Please hear me clearly. At this level of cases with variants spreading, we stand to completely lose the hard-earned ground that we have gained. These variants are a very real threat to our people and to our progress. Now is not the time to relax the critical safeguards that we know could stop the spread of COVID-19 in our communities, not when we're so close," she said. So this is a very confusing time to make public policy, but all of us are so grateful for the clear instructions we've received from respected public health leaders like Montgomery County's own Dr. Fauci and the CDC's Dr. Walensky. But despite those medical instructions, a few hours later, Governor Hogan announced that the state would lift most COVID restrictions in a complete divergence from those instructions. We now have just over 10% of Maryland residents fully vaccinated, less than 10% of Montgomery County residents fully vaccinated. And I at least believe it would be irresponsible to ignore public health guidance and follow the governor's order fully. From the onset of the pandemic, Montgomery County has adhered to guidance from our top public health officials, Dr. Gales, Dr. Stoddard, and Dr. Raymond Kroll, who have continuously advised slow, measured, targeted steps to reopening so not to cause another surge or put our residents in harm's way. And that's what I believe we'll continue to do. The next few weeks are crucial, especially as we are reopening our schools. And as we increase the number of those vaccinated, we hope our numbers will continue to remain where they are or decrease. Therefore, some of the actions in the resolution will be delayed 2 weeks. We're implementing a phased approach to reopening that will allow our community to get our students and teachers back in the classroom safely, to expand business opportunities, and to restore recreational and social activities in a way that doesn't unduly jeopardize public health. We all want to go back to life. We all want life to go back to normal as quickly as possible. And today we're taking another step on the road to reopening by approving our updated and new Board of Health regulation. Action is scheduled immediately following this hearing, and now we can begin the public hearing. The council is now sitting as the Board of Health, and will be evaluating a resolution to adopt a Board of Health regulation to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in the county. Lead sponsor is the council president at the request of the county executive. Each individual will have 2 minutes to speak. Individuals will be alerted as they approach their 2 minutes and may be disconnected. There may be technical glitches during the public hearing that may need to be addressed by our staff, so thanks in advance for your patience. Ms. Kennedy, do you want to recognize the speakers for the public hearing, please?
Yes, our first speaker is Harris Vetterman. Mr. Vetterman, you have 2 minutes and you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Hucker and the council for your time in advance. I am Harris Vetterman, president of Montgomery County Youth Hockey in Rockville, known as MYHA. My oldest daughter, Cecilia, plays for MYHA and hockey is her passion. MYHA is the largest youth hockey club in the region with over 1,200 hockey players and families involved. Almost all live in Montgomery County and are represented by members of the council and the executive. I have read the proposed new executive order, which would bring Rockville Ice Arena from 10 people to 25 people on the ice, and not the 25% we planned for. I understand Councilman Evan Glass is tabling an amendment to the order today that would allow Rockville Ice Arena to operate at 25% capacity, keeping MYHA a functioning, important part of Montgomery County community. I ask you all to support Mr. Glass's amendment. The viability of MYHA is dependent on this. We have a monthly rent over $110,000, and frankly, We cannot sustain this indefinitely if we cannot play hockey games at Rockville Ice Arena. Our parents will simply join hockey clubs in neighboring counties like Frederick, Prince George, and Howard. 25% was the number. 25% was the number we functioned at safely and successfully all fall. And we know if you support this amendment, we can continue to have our kids play hockey safely, which is what this is all about. Thank you for your time, and I'm available to answer any questions. Over.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Adam Zarin. Mr. Zarin, you have 2 minutes and you may begin whenever you're ready. Mr. Zarin, can you hear us? Okay, we will move on to Ed Frankovic, and maybe Mr. Zarin can get his audio straightened out. Mr. Frankovic, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Hello, my name is Ed Frankovic. Thank you, council members and staff, for allowing me to speak today. I live in Ellicott City. We drive 40 minutes to Rockville Ice Arena. We switched to MYHA this season due to the quality of the people involved in running and coaching the team, specifically the Weiss family and Rob Keegan. From last July to December, before the EO was enacted, we had a great season. We played half of our games at Rockville Ice Arena and had super practices with the entire team together. We also found a group of 5 or so trusted restaurants in Montgomery County that we frequented for dinner or lunch, depending on the game and practice time, given our location in Ellicott City. When the executive order went in place in December, we were forced to travel more, especially to Virginia for our games. This increased our risk as we were forced to eat at places we weren't as familiar with in Montgomery County. And sure enough, in mid-February, I came down with COVID, and then our entire family got it. So not only were we put at a competitive disadvantage by having smaller practices and our team not being able to practice together, our risk of exposure to the virus increased significantly because of the travel. I'm convinced that had things stayed the same as they were before the executive order was put in place, we likely would not have gotten COVID. Therefore, I think it is imperative that the EO be amended to include Councilmember Glass's 25% of square footage capacity rule to get Rockville Ice Arena back to the level it was at before the executive order. Frankly, Maya had great situation handling of this virus. Their processes and procedures were excellent, and overall we were made safer because of the way they were running things at Rockville Ice Arena. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for any questions at any time.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Zarin, are you able to join us? Hello. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
We can. You may begin your testimony.
Okay, just a second. Let me get back to that page. All right. Thank you, council members, for giving me the opportunity to testify today on behalf of myself as a hockey parent and with the support of hundreds of other hockey families and Montgomery County residents. I know you've all received many emails from me and others begging for the number of people who can be inside the Rockville Ice Arena to be increased. All of my emails have contained nothing but facts that show the COVID metrics are better now than they were before the tighter restrictions were applied in December, yet we could still not play games at Rockville or even have a full team practice. All of my emails have ended with the same question: why are restrictions not being loosened up to the level it was before the December executive order? You claim to follow the science. That's not the case here. You allow restaurants to be 25% occupied. That's what Councilman Evan Glass is looking for us to be able to have that same number inside the Rockville Ice Arena, and that's the amendment he's asking for today. Now he's been told it's only 25 people. That's a number that will crush the business of the rink continually. Generally speaking, hockey rink enclosures by code can accommodate at least 200 people and more if they have stands, since those occupiable spaces are larger. So by having only 10 people on the ice at a time, as is currently the case, you're allowing less than 5% of the total occupancy to be used. If ice rinks up and down the East Coast and all over the country have now fully reopened, we're not asking for that. We're just asking for the restrictions to be rolled back to the way they were before the executive order in December. If you cannot do that, I believe our families and the business owners of the Rockville Ice Arena are owed an answer why. I look forward to hearing from you now or in response to the emails I will begin sending again tomorrow. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Scott Glazer. Mr. Glazer, you may begin. You have 2 minutes for your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Glazer. I'm a county resident that was born in Montgomery County and have lived here the majority of my life. I've been a public safety first responder for more than 30 years. I started my time in public safety in Montgomery County. I'm a nationally certified hazmat specialist, incident commander, and instructor. I'm trained and nationally certified by the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security in responding to, commanding, and mitigating biological outbreaks just like we are dealing with, including vector tracking. I've taught this to state and federal agencies across the U.S. On top of all this, I'm lucky to have my son grow up and play ice hockey in the county. This has led both myself and my wife to start playing hockey as an adult. In dealing with biological outbreaks such as viruses, we use data-driven, fact-based analytics. Dr. Gales is not doing that with his decision to allow ice rinks at 25% occupancy, but restricting ice hockey to 25 people. We have over 130,000 player hours of data in our organization since August 2020 that shows conclusively that ice hockey is safer than the majority of activities being allowed at higher numbers. The current 10-person and proposed 25-person restrictions have caused increased COVID cases by driving people out of county and state to be exposed to COVID and bring it back to the county. Where is the vector tracking to back this decision? Where is the data analysis to show that the outbreak and increased cases? There is none. As a matter of fact, we, Montgomery Youth Hockey Association, under my direction of leader of MIHA's contact tracing and vector analysis effort, have the data that clearly contradicts this decision. We have been offering to engage it with Dr. Gales and Dr. Statter and the county executive for 3 months. The council in official emails this week stated ice hockey would be at 25%. Where is the data and analysis to justify the sudden change in a little over 48 hours to 25 people, 75% reduction in capacity? I understand the amendment is to bring the levels back to 25%. This would be consistent with how we safely operated throughout the fall and with the empirical data and statistical analysis that shows that occupancy at 25% had no increase in COVID cases or transmission rates at our ranks compared to operating with 25 people.
Mr. Glazer,
We fully support this.
pardon me, Mr. Glazer, but your time is up. I'm sorry to interrupt, but your time is up. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Matthew Liber. Mr. Liber, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Council President Hucker, fellow council members, thank you for your opportunity to speak with you. As I'm sure you know by now, my name is Matt Liber. I'm the Executive Director of the Brown Soccerplex. I'm here to speak out against several elements of the new order that directly affect youth sports in the county. While I appreciate the slight increase to the capacity for both indoor and outdoor sports, still causes drastic limitations. Sports like lacrosse will still have to downsize rosters to meet the capacity limits, and nearly all outdoor sports would have to prohibit spectators. While this sounds simple on paper, it's quite difficult in practice to tell a parent of a 9-year-old who must sit in the car and cannot watch their child to play. This leads to confrontations with venue staff and game officials and incredibly hard to enforce. Additionally, the capacity limits imply that all gatherings are the same and do not account for the venue's size and capabilities to handle large gatherings in a safe manner. The 50-person rule, in essence, says a backyard barbecue in someone's 2,000 square foot yard is the same as a soccer game played on a 75,000 square foot soccer field. These are clearly not the same. There's also a lack of equity across industries where restaurants, retail, religious services, and most relevant fitness centers limits are tied to their fire code capacities, which are largely based on square footage, but every other industry has a maximum capacity based on the wholly arbitrary numbers of 25 and 50. The largest issue with this order regarding sports is mask requirements for outdoor sports, even for players on the field. Approving this rule would make us the only jurisdiction in Maryland, as well as the only jurisdiction in the Mid-Atlantic region to have this rule. The CDC, WHO, National Federation of High School Sports, Maryland Public Secondary School Athletic Association, U.S. Soccer, U.S. Lacrosse, and numerous others, except the American Academy of Pediatrics, have an exception for removing the mask during vigorous exercise while outdoors. Approving this rule would force sports teams to flee the county in the exact same way they did in early fall when Montgomery County instituted the same rule. Sports games, tournaments, and events have been occurring around the country, but also in every corner of the state since last June, except Montgomery County, with little to no cases of mass outbreaks. Numerous scientific research studies by leading medical universities have shown that there's low risk of transmission during outdoor sports events because players are not in close proximity for extended periods of time. I ask that you remove the mask mandate while playing outdoor sports and change the capacity limits to a logical equation based on square footage of the venue to provide equity not only within the county, but also with our neighboring jurisdictions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Kelsey Schall. Ms. Schall, you have 2 minutes. Ms. Schall, are you there? Okay, we're going to move on to Lori Lane. Ms. Lane, you have 2 minutes. You may begin when you're ready. All right. Hello? Yeah, could you turn your computer off, please? We're getting a lot of feedback. Miss Lane, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. That sounds better.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Sorry for that technical difficulty.
That's
Good
okay.
afternoon, President Hucker and fellow council members. My name is Laurie Lane. I am the Executive Director of Potomac Soccer Association, a local youth soccer club that has been a successful soccer program for children of this county for over 40 years. Our families are appreciative of the caution and concern that this county has provided during this pandemic. We are a club of rule followers and have worked hard to contact, trace, and follow every rule set forth during this unprecedented time. We are also just the host of one of the largest and most successful soccer tournaments in the United States, the Potomac Memorial Tournament, which brings hundreds of teams to our county and tens of thousands of families to the area and has proven to be one of the biggest economic impactors of Montgomery County by supporting the hotel industry as well as the local businesses and venues. It is also the biggest revenue generator for our club. Today, I'm here to express my concern about the proposed 50-person gathering size limit, as well as the continued requirement for participants to wear masks at all times while participating in youth sports. These restrictions have literally driven our families to seek games and practices outside of our county. Opponents have routinely canceled scheduled games against our club as they find the restrictions untenable, as other surrounding counties and states have allowed youth sports to be unencumbered in comparison to the lockdown our families have faced. This has also put our participants who have sought to participate in activities outside the county at a severe disadvantage as they have not been able to properly prepare to compete against those that have been at much larger capacity and gathering limits for many months. With the current 25 per field rules, our players have had to practice on tennis courts, tracks, and parking lots to adhere to the current restrictions. We made it work. Even though increasing gathering limits to 50 would certainly allow at least us to host full-sided matches, it would not help us attract matches back to our county and facilities, particularly due to the continued mask restrictions, which will continue to hamstring our efforts to kids participate fully, especially when most every other jurisdiction around us does not mandate it or has followed the guideline for removing masks while participating in rigorous activity, which is supported by the WHO, CDC, and many other accredited organizations. With regard to our memorial tournament, held primarily at the Maryland Soccerplex, as well as multiple other venues around the county, even when a waiver is granted to be held, we will not be able to attract teams from outside of our locality. College coaches would not be able to gather to watch and recruit players. Families will not spend the money.
Lane, pardon me. Your time is up. Thank you very much for your testimony. Our next speaker is Robert Gresham. Mr. Gresham, you have 2 minutes. You may begin your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you. I am a parent of 2 kids that play soccer in Montgomery County, and since August, we've played every single game in Virginia. Not only does that hurt, the Soccerplex has remained empty. Counties in Virginia are getting those dollars for fields, and we're spending money at restaurants and businesses in Virginia. Now, with these current restrictions of 50 or less, it's going to continue to be the same way. And also, forcing a child to wear a mask in vigorous athletic activity is also dangerous for their health. Data has shown it's less than 1% chance of contacting COVID while playing actively in soccer. And if we still have a mask mandate, we will still have to go to Virginia and play because nobody will come to Montgomery County to play us, which will continue to hurt the businesses in our county. So please lift that and expand the limit to people on the field to something that's more reasonable, like other counties all around the country. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Greg Smith. Mr. Smith, you may begin when you're ready. You have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Council President Hucker and fellow council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and thank you for your service. My name is Greg Smith, and I serve as Executive Director for the Maryland State Youth Soccer Association. We are the highest administrative authority for the amateur youth sport of soccer within Maryland and DC, and as recognized by the National Council, a national governing body for the sport, which is the U.S. Soccer Federation. I'm here to speak against the maximum occupancy limitations and face covering requirements contained within this new order as they directly affect youth soccer in Montgomery County. While it's great to see the slight increase in capacity for outdoor sports, the limitations are still more strict than many other counties within Maryland. This limitation on gatherings prevents parents and guardians and siblings and others from being able to watch their son or daughter play the game that they love so much. Regarding the wearing of masks, it can be very difficult for players on the field to perform while attempting to breathe through a mask. Nearly all organizations, to include the Centers for Disease Control, have an exception for removing the mask during vigorous exercise while outdoors. This includes running, which is a central element within the playing of soccer. It is my understanding that, if approved, this mask mandate would result in Montgomery County being the only jurisdiction within Maryland with this restriction. I can testify that the Maryland State Youth Soccer Association has successfully held safe soccer training sessions and competitions with thousands of players collectively within Maryland over the past few months in compliance with the various restrictions that have been in place, none of which required the wearing of masks while actively playing soccer, and I can report that we have not had a single case of COVID transmission. I ask that you remove the mask mandate while playing soccer outdoors and increase the capacity limits at soccer fields. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Leslie Caldicott. Ms. Caldicott, you have 2 minutes and you may begin your testimony. It looks like she's not there anymore. We will move on to Amy Blackburn. Ms. Blackburn, you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Thank you for your time. And first time doing this, so just a little nervous. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry. I'm just waiting for all heck to break loose with my kids behind me. Anyways, I'm testifying to ask the council to support and allow Rockville Ice Arena to operate at least 25% capacity. I own a small business. I'm also a mom of 2 hockey goalies and a figure skater. My business centers around filming sporting events, mainly in rings for families. I have also been using my skills from Montgomery Youth Hockey Association's website. Unfortunately, with the restriction in place, I've had to find work outside the state. As a mom, it's been stressful having to travel outside the state as well to find games for my children to play. Even more frustrating is my youngest daughter had to move her academy to Virginia because of the strict policies. It has been a negative effect on my family, beginning with the cost and including our safety. Unfortunately, we have to travel outside the state, and my older son contracted COVID and traveling to Pennsylvania in areas we had no clue, like with restaurants and etc. And some of those rings are not as strict, and it's very nerve-wracking to be there. Rockville Ice Arena is our home rink and has some of the toughest restrictions. I have seen enough rinks now that I'm proud of our COVID policies and feel very safe there. However, the rink is losing funding, and I'm nervous about that. I'm nervous about our club losing parents and players to other clubs because we cannot play games. I would also like to maintain my business, but if I can't get into a rink, I don't want to take that spot away from a child who is needing social interaction, exercise, and a chance to play the sport. And on a personal level, the sport has totally saved my kids. They're much happier now that they've had a chance to play hockey and figure skating, and just would be really nice to have our local rink a part of that. So thank you so much for your time, and if I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. President, that wraps up the speakers for this public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy, and thank you to all the speakers. That's very helpful. The public hearing is now closed, and we'll move on to action. We'll take a roll call vote on the resolution titled Action Resolution to Adopt a Board of Health Regulation to Prevent the Spread of COVID-19 in the County. But first, I'll recognize the Council's Senior Legislative Attorney, Bob Drummer, to walk us through the resolution. And then I'll take a motion. We have two minor amendments to consider. I believe Dr. Earl Stoddard, Dr. James Bridgers, and Sylvia Kinch from the Office of County Attorney are with us as well. Mr. Drummer.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As you mentioned in the opening, we are acting on our authority under state law under section the Maryland Health General Code annotated section 3-202D, which is quoted in the packet, in the first page of the packet, because the governor has taken back the authority he had given local governments to enact stricter requirements to limit the spread of COVID-19. The provision that's in front of you today doesn't go as far as the governor did, and when he particularly removed most of the restrictions for COVID-19, but it does loosen the restrictions that are currently in effect based on the last public health order approved by the council. Specifically, it removes all local restrictions on child care facilities and therefore requires them to follow the state requirements. So there's no additional local restrictions on child care facilities. It changes the maximum capacity calculation to align with the fire or other occupancy permit, which is clearer and easier to follow. And it increases outdoor gatherings from 25 persons to 50 persons, and indoor gatherings from 10 persons to 25 persons. It also removes the restriction that a gathering couldn't have more than, indoor gathering couldn't have more than, or outdoor, more than one person per 200 square feet of space, which limited gatherings beyond, in certain circumstances, was even stricter than the per person. It was the lesser of the two. So this would eliminate that. It removes the alcohol limits on food service facilities. You know, as you currently know, the existing regulation prohibits alcohol sales for consumption in a food service facility after 10 p.m. And this removes those restrictions and removes the restrictions on how late they can be open. It permits, for the first time since, well, allows the buffet service for food service facilities, which had been restricted, is currently restricted under current guidance. It removes all of the outdoor structure requirements for outdoor seating for food service facilities in light of the weather changing. It does seem to have started to change. I'm sure it's going to continue to get hotter. I've lived here long enough to know that. It also would permit food courts in malls to operate in the same manner as other food service facilities, and would increase capacity for religious facilities to 50%. There's also a provision in here. Currently, the arts and entertainment facilities are restricted and unable to open, and have been unable to open for the past year. This would open them up at 25% capacity on March 26, 2021. That's to recognize that we're trying to do a phased opening. And again, on that date of March 26, the capacity limits for indoor dining at food service facilities, fitness centers, bowling alleys, escape rooms, museums and art galleries, personal services facilities, pools, retail establishments, and recreation centers would increase from 25% to 50% to give those businesses an ability to have something to work towards and prepare for. The Board of would be a Board of Health regulation that would be effective in the municipalities in the county, and it's something that requires a roll call vote, and that's the way it is currently introduced, and obviously could be amended by the council, sitting as the Board of Health.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for your great packet as well on short notice. Council member, my notes were incomplete. We've also been joined, I want to recognize the County Administrative Officer, Rich Manalino is here. Thank you, Rich, for being here. And Dr. Kroll, our Director of HHS, is here as well. Thank you both for spending time with us this afternoon. Mr. Manalino.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you all to the council members for your quick work on this. I know the governor put us in an awkward situation of trying to make sure we needed to jump forward with continuing the restrictions and the protections that have been so essential for us maintaining the health of our community. I know that in the back and forth and the discussions, one point that did come up, if it's okay, Mr. President, if I can offer a slight change to the wording. We had for a long time have had a letter of approval process. People can come forward.
Rich, this isn't the minor amendment we're going to get to after, are we? Is it?
I was thinking that's what it was, but I can certainly hold off.
Yeah, I think, if you don't mind, when we get to the two amendments, that would be more in order. Thank you. Dr. Anything else you want to add, though? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, because I know that we need to get to the adoption.
Okay. Dr. Kroll, Dr. Stoddard, any context you need to add?
I would just add, and this is true of the governor's orders, that the physical distancing requirements still remain in place. So regardless of capacity for any particular venue, all establishments in the state of Maryland will be required to maintain physical distancing between people outside of households. And so even when we have capacity limits that do increase, those businesses, entities, and other establishments will be expected to maintain physical distancing throughout the entire escalation. So I wanted to make that clear as a point, so that when people hear the numbers of percentages increasing, they account for the fact that there will be distancing requirements that have to be maintained in doing so.
As I've heard you say many times, just because something's permanent, it doesn't mean it's safe, right? Dr. Bridgers, our Deputy Health Officer, has joined us as well. Welcome, Dr. Kroll.
Just to say thank you all for taking this up in light of the rapid turn of events. I appreciate you all responding equally quickly to try to make sure that we continue to keep Montgomery County as safe as possible. You know, our rates have been low in part because of the collective work of the council and the Board of Health, sitting as Board of Health, and Dr. Gales and our public health team. And I think that the action you all are taking today and proposing today will help us to stay on that course as we go forward. So thank you for your work.
And Dr. Bridgers, do you have anything to add? Thank you for joining.
Good afternoon, Council President Huckett. The only thing I'd like to add, in addition to what Dr. Stoddard and Dr. Kroll have said, is that we continue in public health to monitor the variants that are out there. And we've had cases of all three variant strands, the UK variant, the South African variant, and the Brazil variant. And we've actually had one death in the state of Maryland. Based on my conversations with Dr. Gales and his conversations with the other health officers, Florida and Maryland are the only two states that have had all three incidents of the variants in their state and among their population. And as we continue to look at risk mitigation and look at all those challenges as students return back to school and the community transmission with these variants that, like the original strand, was unknown. And a year later, we have three additional strands. And so we continue to monitor this in our decision-making processes. And so I just wanted to share that with the body and the group this afternoon as the council consider this order.
Thanks so much for your guidance, and thanks to all of you we were already incredibly busy in the middle of historic pandemic and recession, and you in particular had to drop everything you're doing Tuesday night and react to this surprise announcement from the governor's office. And here we are just 3 days later with a very well thought out, I think, approach to the path forward. So thanks for putting in all the extra time and being able to react to keep our residents safe. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the residents in Montgomery County. It is clear that our county residents have definitely followed the very important guidelines of social distancing, of making sure to wear masks, respecting the restrictions that we have put in place. And that is why we are able to be at the point that we are today. As it has been expressed, there is no doubt that this is all very tenuous. And as I always say, none of us had a manual that said everything here is contained, follow this. This team that is assembled here has always given us extraordinary advice, and we as policymakers have always paid close attention to the various points that have been shared. The issue of the variants is an important one to keep in mind. The fact that we do have porous borders, as I call it, because we are in the Washington metropolitan region, and people, of course, travel through all of the different counties, Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., and so we have to also monitor and take that into consideration. We don't want to go backwards, obviously, but we do see ourselves in a point in time, just having heard the announcement that our president made last night, where there's a glimmer of hope, where we know that the availability of vaccines pretty soon is going to increase, obviously, and it's almost like a race against time and trying to get as many people vaccinated as those increase so that we can address this issue of the variants. These are all very important elements. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands how critical it is to follow the very important input of these extraordinary leaders that we have, our health officer, Dr. Bridgers, Dr. Stoddard, Dr. Cole, everybody that works so hard to piece together all of this data and to be able to then guide us in what we believe would be an appropriate measured approach. As it was stated, we're not ready to do what the governor has declared. As a matter of fact, what we're doing here today is adopting a regulation as the Board of Health, because he has actually taken away the jurisdiction of the county executive. And so this in some ways is also, new, because this is not how we have been operating throughout the pandemic. But I think that this proposal contained in the regulation it's an appropriate approach. I think that obviously we'll continue to monitor the data. We'll continue to monitor all of these numbers, et cetera. As it has been stated before, it's about also personal responsibility, right? I mean, I don't think I will be going into a restaurant anytime soon, but other people may want to. And we want to make sure that we're able to gradually provide that kind of access while monitoring, the numbers. And so I really just want to express my appreciation to everyone who stands ready, no matter what, at a 48 hours notice, it doesn't matter, to bring forth the best possible proposals on behalf of our residents. And I will be supporting this particular proposal. I appreciate all the different, tweaks that were made, and we may make some additional ones today. But in general, just want to say thank you to the team and thank you to our residents for continuing to adhere and continuing to work collectively, so that hopefully pretty soon we can be in a much, much better place. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Well said. Councilmember Raymer.
Thank you. Just wanted to make fairly similar comments. I really do think, in April, I feel like we're going to be in a much better place. And what I really appreciate about this proposed regulation is precisely that kind of staged approach, where there are a few, targeted allowances here that are, I think, fairly small scale. But overall, we're holding fairly consistent for several more weeks. And I think that's the right place for us to be. And by moving to 50%, it's still only 50%. It's not 100% like the governor has established as the floor. And so we're moving to 50% in several weeks. And I hope we'll be able to get to 100% in April. We'll see where the numbers are. We're going to keep our eyes on the numbers. But, we are moving in the right direction, trying to stay ahead of the trends and make sure that things don't turn in the other direction. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Council President. And I want to echo the remarks that Councilmember Navarro made. This really was teamwork and everyone trying to come together to understand that we're reacting to something, as you, Mr. President, said, that the governor kind of just laid in our lap at the last moment at the midnight hour. And it really isn't the way we should be legislating, nor the way we should be navigating through a pandemic. And it's just disappointing. It's disappointing that the governor continues to not work with public health officials across the state. It's disappointing that he continues to not follow the science, even though he says that he is. It's disappointing that a number of things that he says he's not actually following through with. And so it rests in our laps now. And so certainly something in which we're doing the best we can, understanding that whatever we do is not going to be perfect and not everyone is going to agree with it. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is keep everybody safe and make sure that we can open up as safely and effectively as we possibly can. And I think that this proposal strikes that balance. And just want to thank my colleagues for continuing to always work together to strive and create that kind of compromise. And so I think with a number of possible tweaks that we may be talking about here, we find ourselves in a very good place. So thank you guys for all of your great work.
Thank you. Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank our public health team and the attorneys. I see Ms. Kinch is on as well, who's drafted these, all those books she has behind her. I'm sure she's needed them over the course of the last year to draft all these orders, and to Bob Drummer on our team. Just to follow up on what Councilmember Rice said, I don't think you can put too fine a point on it. I mean, what Governor Hogan did this week was irresponsible. It was reckless, and it endangered people's lives. And I dare say it was politically motivated. Just so people know, he took away the power of a state employee who was our health officer to issue an order that contradicts what he put out, which is to say 100%, go full tilt. We know schools aren't back yet. Go on out, go to the bars, go to the restaurants, go to the movie theaters, do it all, but be responsible. And oh yeah, it's St. Patrick's Day next week and spring break's coming up. And then didn't tell us. We're watching the news just like the rest of the public. And I often say the millions watching at home, there's probably going to be that for this. We didn't find out, our health officer didn't find out until that day. It's irresponsible, it's reckless. And then he brings a failed CDC director to prop up the strategy that worked for the previous president. So that puts us in the situation today to have to use our authority as the Board of Health and try to clean up the mess. We have under a 10% positivity rate because we've been cautious, because we've enlarged. We don't agree on every strategy. We won't agree on every strategy today. I don't agree on everything in this order. But because in large part, we have come together and put science and public health first when it's very hard to do so, knowing that there's real economic consequences to that. There's social, emotional consequences to our children. But we did it because those are tough but correct decisions to make. My daughters, two of my daughters, along with thousands of other students, are going to go back to school for the first time on Monday. Several weeks after that, hopefully, if the numbers go in the right way, we'll have the same thing happen for older students in April. We can't put that at risk. And that's what the governor has done leading into spring break and with this irresponsible order. So today we're going to take action that, in my view, is not perfect. It's going to pass. And I wasn't sure until I started talking what I was going to do about it. I'm not happy about I'd like to see us stay at the limits we're at. But it's much, much more responsible and much more thought through than what the governor has done. We're going to look at the data. I've been assured, I know Dr. Bridges and Stoddard and others that are on every 14 days, we look at it already. We're going to do that. We're going to come back. And if it heads in the wrong direction, I have confidence that my colleagues and I, along with the executive and the health team, we will take the appropriate action at that time. So we know it's not easy. We don't want to put at risk going back to school and all those other things that need to happen. But we're in a tough spot here. So I appreciate my colleagues and everyone that's worked on this, and we'll get through this together. Just hang on. We're almost there. Keep social distancing. Keep wearing your mask. I will not be going indoor dining. I won't be hanging out at the bar at 1 a.m. I would not recommend that to anyone, even though it might be allowed. I don't think you should do it. Let's be responsible. We heard the president last night say that by May 1st, hopefully we will expect to have enough doses for all adults. That's several weeks away. Let's just hang in there and get to that point. So I appreciate it, Mr. President. I appreciate my colleagues, and I will be supporting this as we monitor going forward.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Council Vice President Albornoz.
Well, I don't know I can say it any better than my colleagues have said it, especially just now. That was, thank you, first of all, Councilmember Jawando. Appreciate your comments, appreciate the conversations we've been having along with you and all of my colleagues over the last year. And the president was so on point last night, both in the way that he really underscored the pain all of us as a country and as a world have felt over this last year. We have missed weddings. We have not been able to grieve in the way that we would like. We have not been able to see our loved ones in the way that we are accustomed to. Businesses have failed. People have lost their jobs. And just here in Montgomery County, almost 1,400 residents have lost their lives. I just want to stress, as Dr. Fauci did last night on MSNBC and CNN, that we remain in a very tenuous situation. We are not out of the woods. And this is when we have to be especially cautious as we get closer and closer to whatever this finish line ultimately will be. But we are certainly not there yet. And we are in a tenuous situation right now. It was just a little over 2 months ago that we received reports from our colleagues in our hospitals that they had become dangerously close to reaching capacity. And we've also understood the ebbs and flow of this virus. We have learned a lot over this last year, and we know that things like spring break and the radical transition in weather will mean that people understandably are going to let their guard down because they are exhausted. They want this to be over. I want this to be over. All of us want this to be over, but it's not over. And so we do have to continue to be very cautious and methodical in how we base our decisions. Every jurisdiction is different. Every jurisdiction has its own set of data points and different circumstances that they have to consider. And here in Montgomery County, we have to consider the fact that we have a population of 1.2 million people, urban, suburban, and rural. We have a very significant percentage of the population in Montgomery County. 10 of the top zip codes where we've had positive test cases are here. Tremendous need all the way around. And so it's now more important than ever that we hold the line. And I do think that while there will be some amendments that we discuss shortly, I think on the whole, to Councilmember Jawando's point and others as well, none of this is ever going to be perfect. We're all going to come at this from different angles. We will disagree regarding some of these elements, but we are all united, all of us, regardless of what position we are coming at this from, in wanting to make sure that we take public health and public safety as our primary objective and goal. And I know the folks that have testified here before us today, as have many others, as have all the letters and emails and Facebook posts and tweets that we've received, all of those folks feel the same way too. So this is another important step forward in this process. And while I can't say it much better than other colleagues have with regards to the really unfortunate nature in which we find ourselves now, But here we are, and we will do our best to make informed decisions moving forward, acknowledging they're never going to be perfect, but we're doing it as with all the information as best that we can. So thank you very much, Mr. Council President. And I lastly want to say that there is a light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccinations on the horizon. Because of everyone in our community adhering to the guidelines, it's put us in a position to be able to move forward what we're going to move forward today. But the work's not done. So thank you, Mr. Council President. I yield back to you.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I'm just want to be in the chorus to say thank you and join everyone else for what they've said. Council Vice President just mentioned the light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're right at this point. We're at the tunnel. I don't know that we can actually see the light. We're starting to see the flicker of that light. And I think it's very necessary that we need to make certain that that flicker becomes the actual flame, the actual light itself. So I think what we're suggesting, and I agree with much of what's been said, if I were writing this personally, I wouldn't write every part of this way. But this is a collective thought. And I do look forward to the discussion on the amendments. I think the amendments need to be discussed as well. I think there's merit to those discussions. But we are literally walking a tightrope. Montgomery County needs to be very careful because we are a separate entity, but we also have to figure out what the entities around us are doing. And if someone can drive to our good friends in Prince George's County or Frederick County or wherever else and come back to Montgomery County, then we're not keeping our public any safer than they are. And so we need to figure out what's the best way for ourselves, for our children, for our businesses, so that every part of this puzzle fits together. And that's where I am on this. I do believe it should be noted, and it has been noted, that this is not, though this will be a final decision for today at some point, once we discuss the amendments, this will not be the final decision. We're going to come back and discuss this at least a time or a time beyond that again and again. And when our numbers, and we're going to be positive, when our numbers go in a better place, we're going to have to take care of it. And it's been pointed out to me, and I'll stop, but it's been pointed out to me that even with the 100% capacity inside restaurants or wherever, that because of the distancing in those restaurants, you're not going to get to 100% because they didn't have that much of an area between many of their tables before. So it's not something that we're looking at lightly. It is something that we need to be considering in a great manner, which we are, and we need to figure out what it's going to do for high school sports and every other issue when school is opening. So anyhow, I thank all the people who have worked on this, because this has not been fun, this has not been pleasant, but it certainly is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I won't repeat everything that has been said. I just wanted to make a few comments. The first is, as was noted before, residents have made tremendous sacrifices already over the course of the last year. The impact that this has had, these are life-altering decisions, and we hope these are life-saving decisions, but I carry, as we all do, with a heavy heart, the burdens that we're placing on people and the impact that it is having on people. These decisions are not easy, but the impact that this has had on our young people who haven't been able to go back to school in person, the impact that this is having on businesses and workers not being able to have their livelihoods, the challenges of so many people who are eagerly waiting to return as close to normal as possible. I know we all fully understand and appreciate that. The challenge we have is that we aren't in a normal situation, and based on where the numbers are, we're not ready to go back to normal lest we have dire public health consequences. And so the message that we are trying to send, and the actions here that we are taking, is to have a phased approach, to follow the guidance of public health experts, to do the best that we can to balance these competing challenges in a way that keeps people safe but moves forward, reflecting the fact that we are in a better place, fortunately, than we were back in December. As has been noted, I don't think this is the exact public health Board of Health regulation that any of us individually would have drafted in consultation with the public health officer, but we're not a body of one, we're a body of 9. I had hoped and was interested in a regional approach, which I think would be easier to comply with and easier to understand. And I wasn't alone in that. That turned out not to be a realistic possibility. But I appreciate the fact that we are making modest incremental progress today. At 5 o'clock today, the restrictions will be slightly loosened from what they are at the current moment. And just as importantly, if not more importantly, significant progress in 2 weeks, assuming and expecting that our numbers will continue where they are and based on the guidance of public health experts. This gives 2 weeks for those businesses that have been closed to be able to adequately plan and to open in a thoughtful way, and it allows those businesses and organizations that have been at 25% capacity to be able to thoughtfully move up to 50% capacity with a timeline that will allow for them to put in place the appropriate public safety measures. That is the thoughtful, gradual, incremental approach that public health experts all around the country, not just in Montgomery County, not just in the state of Maryland, have increasingly suggested. I think that it's reflective of where our numbers are, what the challenges are, the fact that we are in the situation that we're in. And the main caution that I think all of us are trying to push forward is that we all need to do what we have been doing up to this point, which is to keep ourselves safe, keep each other safe, to follow the public health guidance, and to continue to move forward so that we can open ultimately to 100% capacity. So I believe this is a step in the right direction. I think that it's reflective of the moment that we're in. I am sobered about the serious decision that we are making here and the impact that this has on people's lives. And while certainly not perfect, I don't know that there are perfect answers in the midst of a pandemic. I think that we are taking a thoughtful approach here, and just wanted to thank the executive branch, the public health team, and colleagues, as well as council staff, for what has been a significant collaborative effort over the course of the last few days. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I was going to say this at the end, but I'll just join my colleagues. I too don't love every line or word of the resolution as it's written, but that is characteristic of the legislative process. There's, as Councilmember Navarro said, there is no manual. We have a manual. We don't have a pandemic manual. And I know that every one of our over 1 million residents are not going to be happy with every word in this resolution either. And I don't believe there's any resolution we could pass that makes them all happy. But what I do know is we have an obligation to protect public health, and we take that obligation very, very seriously. And there are clear public health principles that we've continued to follow since the beginning of this pandemic. We have a very rational and a well-educated population that believes in science. We're the home of NIH, not to mention NIST and NOAA and the FDA as well. And our residents expect us to follow the advice of our top medical professionals, including Montgomery County resident Dr. Fauci. And that's why we're here today. That has gone into our entire approach to this, and it has shaped not just this resolution, but our approach to the whole pandemic. I'm very, very proud, not just of the work of the executive branch that we recognized earlier, but of this whole council, because we've had to balance a lot of competing interests through this, and we've continued, and we will today, to put public health first. And I think at the end of the day, and at the end of this pandemic, and when we look back on our actions 20 years from now, I think we're all going to be glad we did. So with that, let me turn over to Mr. Madaleno for the first of a couple housekeeping amendments we're going to discuss. Mr. Madaleno.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. One of the things that we have had as part of the executive orders in the past is a letter of approval process. People can ask a team of people between public health, emergency management, licensing and regulation for guidance when there's a question that's come up that wasn't specifically addressed within the regs. We've had a little bit of a problem with youth sports in that it's been unclear as to whether or not a letter of approval could be granted. And so the amendment that we have before you that hopefully has been distributed would allow that letter of approval process to move forward with youth sports so that there's a potential for an outdoor gathering or indoor gathering that, depending upon the specific event, it could go beyond the 50 outdoor, 25 indoor limit for gatherings.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Council President.
Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I really appreciate the county executive moving this proposed amendment forward. For context, all of our respective offices have met with advocates in every sport, indoor, outdoor, youth and adults over the last year. And there is no question that sports play a critical role holistically, emotionally, and from a health perspective in the vitality of all of our residents. It is also, for a number of our athletes, a really important bridge to be able to access college, to be able to meet new friends. And I've been very public about how sports played a very important role in my own personal and frankly professional development as a former director of the recreation department. I can also speak in the first person about how all of our sports associations across the board and the hosts of these different venues have done really tremendous work in trying their best to be proactive, to be leaders, not just in our region, but across the entire area in ensuring the best possible safety practices are adhered to. Our hockey associations, our soccer associations, our indoor and outdoor sports, swimming, diving, you name it, have all done their best to adhere to the guidelines and be proactive in many instances in establishing and in setting policies and procedures. Being as familiar as I am, and I know my colleagues are with sports, each sport is different. It has a different dynamic, the amount of people that play, the amount of contact there is. The place setting in which they conduct that sport is very different. Whether the teams are playing in a tournament style, or is it a game style, or is it just a practice, or is this a workshop of some sort? There are nuances that are unique to each individual sport. And as Mr. Madaleno mentioned, I appreciate that our public health team has done their best throughout the pandemic to provide as much information as they can when they can, and to work as collaboratively as they can with our sports associations. But one of the challenges is that until recently, and until this amendment that has been put before us, we have not specifically acknowledged that youth sports does fall into a different category. And so there have been circumstances in which a submission was made by a sports association, which actually had the approval and the support of our public health team, but because there was the rigidity in the language, there was understandable concern. And so there have been some instances in which there's been a denial, not because there wasn't a great plan placed, but because we just didn't have all the tools in our toolbox. This, I think, is a very reasonable approach to adding an additional layer of flexibility. And I am going to be following up with Dr. Stoddard and Dr. Gales and Dr. Bridgers and Dr. Kroll, because I do think there's an opportunity, in addition to the incredible team that's evaluating, to access, as they have been doing, information and resources to better understand the unique makeup of each individual sport. And so I very much support this amendment. And I do believe that this moves us forward. I do believe that this puts us in a better position as an institution to address the unique needs of individual sports, and as quickly as we can turn around these requests, but acknowledge the subtle and sometimes significant differences that exist among the different sports categories, and even the difference sometimes between children sports versus youth sports, which, or competitive versus recreation. There's so many nuances that have to be taken into account. So I would like to move this particular amendment forward, Mr. President, because I believe it will be an important part of the solution. Sorry, it was very wordy there, but I wanted to provide that context.
No, not at all. Very helpful to all of us, I think, and it's been great to have a former rec director and somebody with your expertise on the council. It's been moved by Councilmember Albornoz and seconded by Councilmember Friedson. Councilmember Rice?
Would you like me to read it into the record?
Would you please read it into the record, Mr. Drummer? That would be excellent.
Okay, the amendment would modify lines 125 to 130, and it would add the following sentence after paragraph 6, Roman numeral I, Roman numeral 6, rather, 6. The 50-person limit, and this is in the section dealing with sports played outside. So the current language is sports played outside must follow outdoor gathering guidelines, and the total number of people present is limited to 50. This includes staff, coaches, players, and any parents, guardians, or immediate family. The new language would add the following. The 50-person limit may be exceeded for youth sports played indoors if a letter of approval is obtained before the event is held. Then on the following paragraph dealing with indoor sports, where the current language is sports played inside must follow the indoor gathering guidelines, and the total number of people present is limited to 25. This includes staff, coaches, players, and any parents, guardians, or immediate family. The new language would then be added afterwards. The 25-person limit may be exceeded for youth sports played indoors if a letter of approval is obtained before the event is held. That's the amendment.
Terrific. Councilmember, thank you, Bob. Councilmember Rice.
Well, thank you very much. And I really just want to thank Councilmember Vice President Albornoz for his work in terms of making sure that something like this could move forward and working with our Montgomery County Health Department. Well, let me just say there's a reason why we can't just move forward with blanket approvals for everything and open up, especially when it comes to youth sports. Everyone knows that I'm the chair of the Education and Culture Committee, and I've been apprised of multiple schools, I won't name them, but multiple high schools that have had multiple COVID cases. And those have happened in outdoor sports as well as in some indoor contact as well. And so again, we even heard today from folks who, again, may not have contracted on the ice hockey rink or wherever, but have contracted COVID. So these cases are still around. And so I want to just make sure that folks do understand that we're not immune from COVID based on the fact that we follow these restrictions and guidelines. It's still out there. And for all the best practices that you can put forth, there still is the risk that's associated, and we want to try and mitigate that risk as much as possible. I think that working with our health department and giving guidelines and guidance, including better contact tracing, which is really a concern of mine because it appears as though when it comes to working with some of our coaches, when we hear that, oh, well, no one came in contact or was in real close contact with those individuals, that seems impossible when you're all playing on a team together. When you huddle, when you're in the locker room together, all kinds of other things. And so from that perspective, let us work with the health department to give guidance to folks on how, if you do need to exceed these requirements to make sure that your game can still go off, that they give you the best guidance to move forward in terms of how to do that safely and effectively. And so again, I really just want to thank you, Vice President Albornoz, for really sealing that sort of relationship, cementing that relationship between the two so that we can ensure that we can allow these things to move forward if they're done so safely. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion moved by Council Vice President Albornoz, seconded by Councilmember Friedson. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Terrific. That amendment passes. And we have a second amendment. I will call on Councilmember Glass for that one.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just first say that I support this health order, which I think is a measured approach based on science and data, and also the fact that our residents travel throughout our region every single day, which is an important component. And so shifting more directly to the amendment I'd like to introduce, as we finalize this health order, the amendment I want to introduce would bring youth ice hockey to 25% capacity so that the activity on the ice rink is the same as the capacity limits for the actual skating facility. My amendment is simple and technical in nature, and I'm going to repeat that again. This is a technical amendment. Currently, ice rinks are unlike other sports. They are characterized as fitness centers, which allow for a 25% maximum occupancy under the current language. And what this technical amendment does is it would ensure that the facility language that is already allowed would match the activity in that facility. It's common sense. And so, for example, it would not make sense, let me say, for us to open gyms at 25%, but then to start dictating what can actually happen within those gym facilities. That's the same comparison here. And so, in addition, this language would also allow for people in the facilities, because that is already in the order. I know it sounds confusing, but our job is to make sure that our residents understand these executive orders, understand the measured, phased-in reopening process that we are undertaking because the governor has thrown it into our laps. And that's why I am proposing we align youth ice hockey language with the ice rink language that is currently in the legislation. But again, I'm going to keep repeating this. The amendment is a technical amendment to provide consistency and clarity regarding the capacity of a building and the activity in that building. And with that, I'd like to move this amendment.
So moved. Okay. Councilmember, is there a second? Councilmember Ferguson will second. Terrific. Any other discussion? Councilmember Reamer.
I'd just like to try to understand this, please. I'm finding this confusing. Ice hockey under the amended order that is already before us. Ice hockey, setting aside this new amendment. Ice hockey is subject to what limit?
Mr. Drummer, would you like to read the amendment?
Ice hockey is an indoor sport and would be covered by the maximum number of 25 people. But that could be exceeded now that the First Amendment was approved by requesting a letter of approval.
But the issue is that a 25-person limit for any youth sport basically means that you can't have any parents there. You can only have the teams and maybe a coach, but you can't have any parents there or any family or any spectators. So it makes it extremely difficult for the teams to, compete. I guess my question though is, gyms are 25% capacity. Is basketball 25% indoor, 25 people indoors under our order, or is basketball 25% of the capacity of the gym?
Well, I'll let Dr. Stoddard correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the same 25-person rule for indoor basketball.
Mr. Drummer is correct. The way that we have interpreted the way it's written is in the prior orders, obviously the Board of Health can choose to word this differently, is that imagine you had a fitness center, and in that fitness center they have a basketball court. They could have 25% occupancy throughout the fitness center, but could only have a basketball game of singular activity up to 25 people participating at the same time. That is the same thing would be theoretically that is currently true in our ice rinks, which is that the whole facility, the whole square footage of the facility is used to calculate 25%. But right now they are limited to playing a game of hockey to 25. And so that is the issue that has been raised. And functionally, I believe hockey, just players alone, is 26 individuals. Coaches is, several more than that. Referees, several more than that. And so this is part of the challenge that is run into. But functionally, what will happen is the basketball game would have to go through the letter of approval process. But under Councilmember Glass's amendment, the ice hockey would be permitted just to follow 25%.
And under the order that we've approved on March 26th, what is the rule for indoor? Under the order that we're considering, I think I said approved. We are considering. What is the rule for indoor sports on March 26th?
The facility capacity goes up, but the youth sports would stay the same. The number.
So indoor youth sports will still be subject to a 25-person limit continuing. And basketball season is going to start pretty soon. So basketball leagues would need to apply for waivers at this time if they want to be on schedule to open. But youth hockey would basically be allowed to proceed without a waiver. And we don't have a uniform policy for youth sports that says that all indoor youth sports are subject to a certain limit. We have one limit for hockey, and we have a waiver process for the rest of it under this amendment. I mean, I think you can understand why it's a little tricky.
If I could jump in, the difference is the difference is that the ice rinks are classified as fitness centers. None of the other facilities are fitness centers. That's where it gets even trickier.
How's a gym qualified? Well, I don't know if I look at it that way. The way I'm looking
That's not correct. That's not correct, because they're basketball courts that are in fitness centers and they're in gyms and they're considered fitness centers, as Dr. Stoddard just said. So that's not true.
I mean, I don't know. What I was trying to get at was, can we have a concept here for indoor youth sports? I mean, I think that I can understand. And I think the waiver is intended to allow us to do that. And the amendment basically establishes a specific standard for youth hockey, but there is no other standard for basketball that might be in a gym or a community center or a school site. And so those teams will, we'd either have to address that soon, or those teams would have to apply for a waiver. And I wanted to understand it. Now I understand it. Thank you.
If I may add, we had a meeting with our letter of approval team actually at 11 o'clock this morning to go over some of these changes and had some discussion. And I do know, for example, we have met with Mr. Lieber from the Soccerplex, and they have suggested that they would need an indoor number of 37 to cover all their sports, and an outdoor number of approximately 65. It's a bit different for every sport, and I think that's part of the challenge of having individual. It would be a challenge to have individual rules for every sport across the board. So obviously that's a challenge. But I do think, for example, with what Mr. Lieber has suggested for the Soccerplex, 37 and 65, the letter of approval team will approve those. And just so we're clear about that. Really where it comes to in terms of escalation is when we start to get into the numbers like tournaments, which could obviously get into the hundreds. And that's really where we need to really have a lot more scrutiny over the processes associated.
Can I ask, if I could, please, 25% of the rinks, what is that likely to be in terms of people? Well, it doesn't matter, because what the proposal is to say that 50 is the limit for indoor, right? That's the actual proposal. No, the proposal is 25% of the rinks. So how many people is that?
My understanding from conversations with Mr. Best from the Rockville Ice Rink last night is that I believe 10% capacity was something like 35 to 40 individuals, and so 25% would therefore be 100 or so. 90 to 100 is my understanding, but that was what I was described last time.
Dr. Starter, the 25%, the 75 to 100 individuals you just identified is what is currently allowed in the executive order without an amendment. All it is specifying is that, correct. That's what
in the building. Yeah, in the building, 100. Yeah, 75 to 100 people. It's just a matter of whether they're, what we would say is what would have existed had this amendment not been made. And I'm not attempting in any way to disparage the amendment. I'm just making clear what the differences are. Is that those 75 to 100 people couldn't all be on the ice concurrently, absent this amendment. That's all we're saying.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you. I guess I was just trying to understand as well. The questions that Councilmember Reamer was asking was actually what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, so the last amendment would create a sort of a waiver process, and this one would sort of not have that apply to ice hockey, right?
It would be a different standard for ice hockey. We would look at the building capacity rather than the number of people.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm having a little bit of a hard time, just because we keep saying that we're going to obviously try to be as consistent as possible and just realizing that there may be differences. But if you have a waiver process, and you have a waiver process, so anyway, I will continue to listen to colleagues, but it just seems like the waiver process would be the best possible mechanism, so that everybody has an opportunity to present their case, and then things would be made available, or decisions could be made. So thank you. Just still trying to process why we would do this differently. I'll continue to listen. Thank you.
Councilmember Rice.
Yeah, so my question is for Dr. Stoddard, because I know my daughter played indoor soccer. And so the number of people for indoor soccer is actually larger than the number of people for indoor ice hockey. And so under this, we'd actually create a standard for ice hockey, but we wouldn't create that same standard, for example, for indoor soccer. Is that correct?
That is correct. Indoor soccer would still have to be governed by the 25-person limit, with the ability, based on the amendment that was just accepted, to do a letter of approval that would allow them to exceed that.
Which, knowing the number of players that individual, when it comes to indoor soccer, has, and coaches would exceed that 25-person limit just on the field, not even just having a person to sub in, but just on the field alone. And so from that perspective, look, I've always said at the beginning that for me, it's not about picking winners and losers. It's not about saying one can have and the others can't. We've got basketball, we've got indoor soccer, we've got indoor volleyball, we've got all kinds of sports that are being played that can, be susceptible to this. I think that, and so Dr. Stoddard, you opined before, you said that Mr. Liber and his proposal would likely be approved. Would indoor hockey likely be approved for practice under the ability for them to do similar to what the Soccerplex is prescribing? Because then the amendment would be unnecessary, basically, if in fact you are saying and signaling that it's likely that these would be approved. So I just ask that question to you.
Yes, I believe youth hockey had requested something like 35, and having based on the discussion we've had prior to this and what we had today, they would be approved.
So then so for me then, if that's the case, we just heard that from Dr. Stoddard, I'm not going to support the amendment because it's already covered under the amendment that Councilmember, that Vice President Albornoz already directed, and we heard directly from Dr. Stoddard. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I guess we probably made this more confusing because we're trying to make it less confusing. And I actually am supportive of the idea that if we're going to have youth sports, that you actually have to have a number that the youth participating in the sports and the coaches and everyone else involved has the ability to be on the field, on the rink, in the rink, whatever, at the same time. And if you don't have that, then you really aren't having youth sports. You might be having a practice, but you're not having anything beyond that. So I am supportive of having the numbers be the right numbers. Now, how we get there, I think that what Councilmember Glass is suggesting does work for the numbers. I think that what we're suggesting, or what has been suggested earlier, for the waiver works. But if you have to have a waiver for each time, I don't know how that works. Because if you say we're going to have a match, a game today, and we get a waiver, and then we're going to have one in a week, do we need to get a waiver for that? Is the waiver good for the season? How does any of that work? And then, just to add one more log to this fire, because we certainly need more confusion, I am concerned about how this is going to affect, and I know it's outdoors. We're talking indoors. I'm being a little, but I would like to know how this is going to affect for instance, high school football or other sports where it is a contact sport, and how we can, and I'm getting, I've gotten people that are contacting me, how we can say to them, yes, you can open, and yes, you can have practice, but you can't have a game. And to the Vice President Albernaz's point earlier on, there are people from all of these sports whose lives will depend on them getting a scholarship. And we have to be very careful that we're not affecting their lives forever, because they won't have the ability to get that scholarship to get them to a better place in life. So I don't know exactly what's the best course forward, but I think we need to be very, very sensible in how we're doing this.
Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. This is complicated and challenging. I will say one of the challenges with the letter of approval, there's not a lot of trust on the speed of that process. And so, I appreciate Dr. Stoddard's commitment here. I think that's really important. I think, folks want to have a realistic understanding that this isn't, a possibility far off into the distance, but something that could actually be handled in a reasonable time frame. And so I just wanted to note that. I think that's really important for the letter of approval process to work. It has to be something that can be moved in a very timely manner. Hopefully the prior amendment will help to facilitate that across the board. But if we can't do letters of approval in a timely manner, or the folks aren't empowered to actually approve anything that isn't expressly allowed in the order, it doesn't work. So hopefully that is resolved. I will say the challenge of consistency, I have raised the issue of consistency quite a bit, and it's an area that frustrates me a lot. The challenge we have here is it's not consistent right now, as Councilmember Glass had noted. That the dynamic here would be the equivalent of saying, if in a basketball court, if you're playing dodgeball, it's 25%, but if you play a basketball in an organized game, you're limited to 25 people. I would note that you actually can play an organized basketball game with 25 people, 10 aside plus 2 coaches plus a referee. You have a basketball game. So that actually would work and not prevent a basketball game from happening. But the point being is that doesn't make any sense. In this case, we have ice rinks that are treated as fitness facilities. You don't go to an ice rink for anything other than using the ice surface. And if you are part of a public skate, which is more like a social gathering, you're treated to 25% like a fitness facility. But if you're playing hockey in an organized manner where precautions have been taken for social distancing and limiting the number of people who are there, then you're capped at 25, which doesn't allow an organized game to take place. That level of inconsistency, I think is what the intention here is to resolve. I note that, there are challenges. There are a lot of different dynamics going on here, but as it currently stands, it is not consistent that depending on what type of activity and what you call the activity that you're in, organized versus not organized, would change whether or not you're held to a 25% standard versus a 25-person standard. And to me, that is very challenging and not something that I'm comfortable with. So, for that reason, I support Councilmember Glass's amendment. I will say, if there was interest of the body to address that issue, but the issue of 25%, which could be upwards of 75 to 90 people, which is a lot of people, no matter what activity you were in, I think if we capped it at a lower number, 10% for ice rinks, which is a different standard, which would be public skate, that would be figure skating, that would be ice hockey, regardless of what activity you were doing, that would be the limitation of the number of people that are allowed on an ice surface on any given time. I'll also note that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You could have a situation where the spectators don't count because they're on the other side of the glass. The other side of the glass is considered a fitness center. Once you enter the ice surface, you're considered playing hockey, and so you could have a huge number of people spectating, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. We could eliminate that challenge by a friendly amendment if the sponsor was willing to go down to 10% for all activities in ice rinks, including figure skating, public skates, ice hockey, if that would be of interest. I think it would be more consistent. It wouldn't depend on what activity was occurring, and I think it would address the understandable public health concerns that nobody wants to have 75 to 90 people on an ice surface on any given time. I'll just lastly say our numbers currently are lower than what they were when organized ice hockey was allowed in the fall. And so it is consistent with public health decisions that have already been made. It would allow for a level of consistency, and if there was a need for more people or more activities or anything, they would still have to go through the letter of approval process. 10% is still a relatively modest number, but I think it would address the issue of consistency here while balancing the public health dynamic. So assuming that was okay with the sponsor and if there's interest of the body.
I deem it as friendly, absolutely.
Great. Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thanks. This has been a healthy discussion. So let me just make two observations. One, what makes hockey and the programming different on rinks is very unique to the facility because, the hockey rink, as it's situated within an overarching space, is different than a gym, is different than a swim center, is different than some of the other activities that are out there. And so I think 10% is a reasonable threshold, acknowledging that as a facility, it has its own unique elements, which I think is still consistent with the amendment I put forward to look sport by sport. But this acknowledges the unique difference of the actual building, which is a little different here. So 10% is, I just did the quick math, is in line with what would have been proposed more or less with the numbers that youth hockey was looking for in the first place. And so I think the amendment makes sense and in tandem and then eliminates the possibility of the unintended consequence of impacting other sports, but acknowledging the unique aspects of the building and the infrastructure. So I think the two in tandem with that amendment is something I'm more comfortable with.
Okay, we have Councilmember Raymer.
Good discussion. I learned something here. I think we could have said all sports are governed by the capacity limit of the buildings that they're in, but I don't think we're really prepared to do that. And I think that the amendment, the modified amendment, is a good solution. I appreciate the creative thinking. So thank you.
Great. Okay, we have an motion. We have
Mr. President, sorry. I had a question for Dr. Stoddard because Dr. Stoddard, it was asserted that it takes a long time to turn around the waiver request. What's the time frame for the waiver request turnaround?
We process waiver requests. We don't have a backlog right now. We haven't had a backlog since the last time we had a backlog for any letter approvals was when we expanded the retail capacity to 150, and we had like 100 facilities ask for that exemption. 25 requests, 100 facilities or more. We haven't had backlog since then. I think that was back in December. We process them on a weekly basis. So depending on when they come in, Dr. Gales and I are part of the team with Ms. Kinch and others from the team. We review them every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. And so long as they're received, they'll be processed for that 8 a.m. meeting in advance. In rare circumstances, it takes a little bit of time because if there's a back and forth where we have a question about a process, then obviously it depends on how that goes. I would also note, I think Councilmember Katz also raised one point about if you had to get individual approval. Typically, the way we approve events that are repeat events like a hockey game or like a basketball game would be that if the rules don't change and you're following the same guidelines, we'll give you an approval for each instance that you request on the one time. So you'll have to resubmit for every basketball game. If the rules don't change from the Board of Health at this point and there's no change in the way they're operating the event, then the approval remains consistent.
Now, Councilmember Albornoz addressed something regarding the thing that it's housed within. How is the Discovery Sports Complex treated?
So they would have to get an approval for each activity that's being held.
So the same as an ice rink.
Yes, essentially they'd have to. Right, you have.
Right.
Right.
So it's
correct.
not unique. So I just want to be clear. If we're going to do this, we should do this for every sport, right? That is housed there. That's where my daughter played indoor soccer. I know that's where Department of Recreation does its indoor soccer stuff. And I don't feel comfortable just picking ice hockey versus indoor soccer versus indoor basketball versus all the things that happen inside the Discovery Sports Complex that I know because it's in my district and I go there all the time. It's like all of those things are happening there, right? So the same number of people that are on a team for a hockey team, which is 6, right, is the same number for volleyball. They're also in there. So it's a multitude of different kinds of things. And so unless we're going to extend this to all sports, why are we just extending it just to hockey? I just want to understand what the rationale is just for picking out hockey when these other sports are also affected. Anyone?
Sure, I'll jump in.
Councilmember Glass.
Yeah, absolutely. I was waiting for the president to call on me, but the reason I identified this is because reviewing the executive order, there was a clear discrepancy between ice rinks and their classification as fitness centers. Now, through this very healthy conversation, and I want to underscore that, I think this has been really good. But if we've now identified other instances, right, of some discrepancies, well, then we need to work on that because we need clarity. We need everyone to understand the processes that we're using to evaluate all of our decisions moving forward. And clearly we have our work cut out for us in 2 weeks when we review this again. So I appreciate you finding and identifying other things that we have to work on because I only identified this one.
So I would prefer that we come back to this and address them all in the spirit of equity, address them all at the same time. That would be my preference, which is why I can't support the amendment today. I do support us moving forward in a mechanism that supports all sports moving equitably in the same manner when it comes to it. So that's the only reason why. I do believe there is a solution. I do believe it can address all of the sports, and we'll support that if we can come up with a proposal that does just that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you. So a good discussion. I agree with Councilmember Rice. I haven't even seen the language. I'm not 100% sure on what I'd even be voting on right now based on the new amendment. So for that reason, for the equity concerns, and for my general disposition that we should be proceeding cautiously overall, I think we should just park this. If it's going to take a vote, it's going to take a vote. It's been seconded. I won't support it right now, but I am glad, and I did support Councilmember Albernoz's that allows for a waiver process in the interim. We'll be back here in 2 weeks. I hope, I pray the numbers improve and it indicates that we can do something more or at least stay where we are and not have to roll back. But we're going to need to see that. So I am in a similar position. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thanks. I'll just say 2 things. Just taking like 3 steps back. What we've all of us been put in a very difficult situation because the governor's order came over on Tuesday. And so all of us have been scrambling to try and sort of address many of these moving parts as we go through. I just want to say for the public that moving forward, now that we have transitioned into this new phase of decision making, what will occur moving forward is not what has transpired this week. We've had to adjust to both understanding exactly which legal mechanism we had to institute public health local orders We've had to then go through the process of evaluating and comparing our orders as compared to the state, as compared to others around the region. And so we've all been not a lot of sleep this week trying to figure out not just this issue, which has been very important, but every single one of the issues that we discussed today had similar and more conversations prior to this session. And so Councilmember Rice raises excellent points in terms of those equity issues and what those issues are moving forward that we need to look at. And I so appreciate everyone's support of the initial amendments because I think that in the category of youth sports provides a good model for us to look at individual cases on an individual basis. But I just yield back to what I said earlier, which is that in this specific instance, ice hockey rinks do have a unique dynamic, and I totally understand and have been to the Discoveryplex many, many times, Mr. Rice. What makes that facility unique, and by the way, Matt Lieber and his team do an outstanding job in every facet of the operation of that facility. It is a treasure and jewel in Montgomery County, and they have taken it on the chin, just like so many other industries over the last year, in not being able to open to the degree to which they would like. I'll just note two things, because I am going to continue to support this amendment, that, as has been noted several times, we're going to be revisiting all of this every 2 weeks, and there will be numerous conversations between now and these sessions every 2 weeks, so that we don't have to have these discussions from the dais in the way that we are right now. It's not fair to any of us. It's not fair to the community. And moving forward, this will be a much more streamlined process. It's just the unique nature of what we have found ourselves in because of the current circumstances that we're having to have conversations like this in the way that we're having them. But it's going to be better moving forward as the numbers improve and as vaccines improve as well. So with that, I yield back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you very much. I have really, well, I don't know if the word is enjoy, but I think I'm appreciative of the exchange and the discussion. I go back to this notion that it is true. There are a lot of things are not consistent, which I think it's why I felt that the waiver process was an important one, because it recognizes that there will be differences. You know, to me, this is something that we have used in the past. The issue of equity is very much, it's real. And so, you know, to the extent that the waiver process allows for a level playing field, for these things to be, you know, addressed according to their unique circumstances, it is a process that then everybody can access. In this instance, it feels a little bit like we are making a decision for a particular sport and we're telling everybody else to just, you know, kind of like stand in line and go through the waiver process. You know, I can count the votes. I know where it's going, but I just, in the spirit of trying to have some consistency in how we have addressed these issues in the past, I think that it's important to send a message to all the different sports that, you know, that there is one particular process and that everybody should abide to that process, versus we're kind of picking and choosing different sports. That does not sound equitable to me, so I will be voting against it. Thank you.
We got to wrap this up soon, folks. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, I'll just quickly close and say I appreciate the discussion. I think this has been really robust. I agree that I'd prefer that you know, we are able to flesh some of these things out in advance, and hopefully moving forward we will. We're under challenging circumstances given the nature of the week that we had and the manner in which the announcement came down to us. Suffice it to say, as was discussed earlier, I did just want to lastly point out the idea of fairness and equity. Our county-run facilities that predominantly do public skates and open skates are allowing for drastically more people currently than organized ice hockey. And to me, that is the issue that needs to be resolved. That's the intention of the amendment put forward by Councilmember Glass. This would bring those activities and organized hockey activities on the same surface with the same dynamics under the same set of rules. To me, I think that makes sense. I do agree that there are a number of other areas, the soccerplex being one where these unique circumstances need to be better thought through than they have been up to this point, and the letter of approval process that moves forward quickly will be able to do that. But hopefully we can move forward. We'll come back in 2 weeks and see where things land. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, we will. Councilmember Reamer.
Thanks. Last comment.
You're not going to be the last, but go on.
Well, right. My last comment. The reason why I think we're grappling with this right now is because hockey season's happening right now.
Right.
And basketball season is about to start. Baseball season is about to start. I'm not sure about soccer. But I'm sensitive to the comment that it appears that, hockey's getting special treatment. I think it's really because it's hockey season. And so that's my impression. And so I think on that basis, I think it's reasonable for us to take quick action. And I think with the 10% amendment, we are not giving hockey something it wouldn't get. And so, I feel comfortable with that. But I do understand that observation, that's for sure.
Great. Yes, Councilmember, it's been robust, fulsome, and prolix. Councilmember Glass, take us home.
Real quick. So thank you. Yes, robust, good conversation. Just in closing, I think the 10% amendment is a good and fair one. And yes, what we do need is a consistent policy. And I support the waiver policy, but a waiver policy is not a policy. It's a subjective process that is known by people who know about it. And so over the next few weeks, I look forward to working with all of you to figure out what a coherent policy is for all the sports that are coming up in all the different venues and in all the different types of classifications that those venues might be listed as. That's the thorny issue that we're trying to grapple with. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so there's a motion. It's been seconded. It's been discussed. All those in favor, please raise your hands.
Before you vote, I need to know what the motion is.
Right. You're right. About an hour and a half ago, Senior Legislative Attorney Bob Drummer reminded me he doesn't know what the motion is. So, Councilmember Glass, can you restate the amended amendment?
Let me pull this up. Or Mr. Drummer, do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I have something here, but I'm just trying to understand. It needs to be rewritten a little bit.
Swap out the 25% with 10%.
But we're still limiting it to youth hockey, right?
Everything is the same in that drafted amendment, except for the 25% is now 10%.
All right. So it would say in paragraph 6E5, it would now say, except for youth hockey, sports played inside, and that's the new language, sports played inside must follow the indoor gathering guidelines, and the total number of people present is limited to 25. This includes staff, coaches, players, and any parents, guardians, or immediate family. Then the language that I discussed before, which has already been approved on letters of waivers. Then it would say the total number of persons present for youth hockey played indoors must not exceed the ice rink facility is actually 25%. So what we're saying is must not exceed 10% of the ice rink facility maximum occupancy.
Could I make a suggestion to make this a lot simpler?
Yes.
Rather than try to do that, couldn't we just, instead of including ice rinks, which were added to the fitness facility, just create a new category for ice rink at 10% capacity, which would be all activities in an ice rink? The idea was to add ice rinks to the fitness center. That created all kinds of issues because depending on what activity you do changes the dynamic of how many people are allowed on the ice at any given time. We just create a new category for ice rink, say ice rinks can operate at 10% capacity as a standalone. That would solve the issue and make it, regardless of what activity you're doing on an ice surface, you're capped at 10% capacity.
Well, you'd still need to have the exclusion in the sports category for indoor sports. You can't get away from that because that would control the hockey.
Can we have something in writing and vote on it on Tuesday? I don't even know what's being said. I haven't seen anything in writing. I understand there's a waiver between now and Tuesday if someone has a game this weekend, but can we just bring it back on Tuesday and sit at the Board of Health for 5 minutes and get it right? Because I haven't even seen what we're voting on. Mr. President, I would ask.
That's fine with me. That is the protocol we agreed to take up at our administrative meeting.
Well, we have an amendment that's been seconded that's on the floor, so it'd have to be withdrawn and
withdrawn.
Well, I'm asking if Mr. Glass, if we could just wait until Tuesday so we could see it.
Well, I'm looking at the amendment. I believe it was shared around,
as amended.
As amended. Well, if there is agreement to bring this up back on Tuesday, we can figure that out. So I would be amenable to that. Today being Friday.
Right.
So we're gonna amend this order again on Tuesday. That's the proposal. We're gonna pass a Board of Health regulation today, and then we're gonna public notice it, public hearing it, and then amend it again on Tuesday. I just want to make sure I understand what we're suggesting here and what's being agreed upon.
Mr. Drummer, any reason we can't do that?
Guys,
there's no reason you can't do it, but you would need to have another public hearing.
To notice it, right.
Notify that we're making amendments to the order.
I understand this, but I don't think it's necessary. I understand the idea here, but
I'm comfortable just changing the 10% that in the Glass amendment, the 25 number to 10% and continuing to move the amendment.
Go back to what I asked Mr. Drummer to do, which was change the 25%.
25 to 10. Okay. Councilmember Katz.
Yeah, and then the other concern is the governor's order goes into effect at 5 o'clock tonight. We have to.
We're going to vote on
something.
We're going to vote on the resolution with or without this amendment.
Well, okay. I'm fine with the amendment. But anyhow,
right.
Thank you.
I hear you. Okay. All right. So we have amendment. We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor of this amendment, please raise your hand. That is Councilmember Glass, Councilmember Katz, Councilmember Albornoz, Councilmember Friedson, Councilmember Reamer. That is 5. All those opposed. Councilmember Navarro, Councilmember Juando, Councilmember Hucker. Are we missing somebody? Oh, Councilmember Rice, sorry. My thumbnails are too small here. All those, okay. Motion passes. The bill is amended. Now, the regulation is amended. We already have an amendment for the a motion for the amended health reg. Well, no, we don't. We need a motion for the amended health regulation. Correct, Mr. Drummer? I don't think we took that at the beginning.
Move it as amended.
Right.
So
Right.
moved as
Motion.
amended.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro moves. Council Vice President seconds it. All those in favor of the approving the health regulation as amended today, please raise your hands. Oh, well, no, it's a roll call vote.
Roll call.
Sorry. Please call the roll.
Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Glass votes yes. Mr. Tawanda.
Yes.
Mr. Tawanda votes yes. Mr. Reamer.
yes.
Mr. Reamer votes yes. Mr. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Katz votes yes. Ms. Navarro.
Yes.
Ms. Navarro votes yes. Mr. Rice.
Yes.
Mr. Rice votes yes. Mr. Friedson.
Yes.
Mr. Friedson votes yes. Mr. Albornoz.
Yes.
Mr. Albornoz votes yes. Mr. Hucker.
Yes.
Mr. Hucker votes yes.
Thank you. Regulation passes. I believe we are adjourned. Thank you, colleagues. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
See you on
I want to
Tuesday.
say I have a 3:30 I can't miss, so I